I hope we will have more guests. What happened is yesterday was a bit upsetting. We also had the Italian group last night with the keynote speech, actually. There was the Italian consulate of İzmir, and there were very few people who are watching live, but then 90 people watched it in the YouTube. I don't know about this being live and recording. I hope we have more guests. It's just 5 o'clock. We can wait a little bit more.
Yeah. I think it already started on YouTube.
Not yet. It's recording. Bahar Hanım, YouTube'da başladık mı?
Yes, it's
başladım.
live on YouTube.
Okay. Okay, I think we can start.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then let me speak Turkish and give the technical issues. Okay. Merhabalar, hoş geldiniz. Ben öncelikle bir teknik bilgi vermek istiyorum katılımcılara, dinleyicilere. Chatbox'ımız açık. Chatbox'tan yazışmalara izin veriyoruz demeyeyim. İstediğiniz gibi konuşup tartışabilirsiniz. O katılımcı ortamı görmek istiyoruz bizler de. Fakat eğer orası çok yoğun olursa sorularınızı mümkünse ekranınızın altında bulunan Q&A, Question and Answer, soru ve yanıt kısmına yazmanızı rica edeceğiz. Çünkü orada sorular birikiyor ve oradan görmek daha net oluyor. Chatbox içerisindeki diyaloglarda kaybolmamış oluyor. Biz şu an Zoom webinar kullanıyoruz. Bunun bir özelliği bazen 2 kişi aynı anda ya da 3 kişi aynı anda getirebiliyor olması. Eğer Zoom'unuz son sürümünde değilse bunu göstermiyor. O yüzden Zoom'unuzun son updated versiyonu olduğundan lütfen emin olunuz. Bu session'ımız İngilizce olarak gerçekleşecek. Bir tercümemiz söz konusu. Yine ekranın altında Interpretation'a tıkladığınızda Korean'ı yani Korece'yi tıkladığınızda Türkçe olarak çeviriyi dinleyebileceksiniz. Diyerek ben moderatörümüz Can Özcan'a sözü vermek istiyorum. Güzel bir panel olmasını diliyorum. Ve de Andrea RATTİ, I'm also going to show him.
Evet.
Okay.
Hem herkese merhaba. Hi Andrea and hi everyone.
Hello everybody.
Yes, it's honor for me and for Andrea to be here. Attending this 5th Good Design Days in İzmir. And we are thanking all the organizers and everybody involved for involving these two men, who will be talking about maritime issues, sea issues, wet issues. And I'll start, with a presentation but Andrea is a very old friend of mine, and we have been together several times. And he is a chairperson. He is a member of maritime issues. And he's going to introduce himself better than me, I guess. But I'll make my introduction to presentation I'm going to share over my screen. And so this is where we are. This is what our scope is about for today. And designing for life at the Mediterranean Sea now and then. And the image in the middle is the image behind me. So sometimes people get to ask what's behind me. So that's the image behind me. It also fits the context. And the 3 people you see are, Andrea from Milano and me from İzmir University of Economics. Andrea, would you like to join and introduce yourself?
Yes, I can do. With pleasure. First of all, thanks for inviting me. We have a long experience of exchange in teaching activities and managing seminars, so it's anytime a pleasure to share what we are doing in research and teaching activity with you, because this is I believe this is the way of get anytime more input and more effective opportunity to develop our thought on what your design could be. And so it's a great pleasure to be here again. So I'm a professor in Politecnico di Milano design department, and I'm mainly involved in the research activities on composite material applied for yacht production. And I teach, I'm the director of the Master in Yacht Design we held in Politecnico since 20 years ago. And the director of the Master degree in design and ship, in yacht and ship design that we managed together with the University of Genoa, and we held it in La Spezia. So this is my main activities, and today we will try to share and compare a vision on what the title that we had, the Designing for Life, could mean, and what could be the relationship between doing this in Mediterranean, if this could be considered specific, or we are moving toward the possibility of managing yacht design all over the world without specific attention. So I will try to discuss about that. We managed just yesterday a seminar on the changement on the way of using yacht and the impact that this could have on yacht design. So I will try also to drive to you some output that came out from the discussion of yesterday as well.
Okay, don't ever think that, I mean, Andrea is such a, sharp and serious person. And the reason we asked him to join is not only his professional, quality, but also his personal quality. And when we asked for an image from Andrea, this is what he had sent to us. And I said, is it Andrea that I know? No. The Andrea that I know is this guy. And so, and I said, Andrea, okay, that tie is not going to save you, Andrea. That tie is not going to save you. And all these
I have to say, if I can interrupt you, I have to say that I find myself better in that situation between a couple of steering wheel that sitting on the chair, but we can't expect to do what we prefer anytime. So let's talk about your design. It's enough for now.
We are going to be talking about this issue because, just as you say, it was April 2019, and just after 1 year, the same place was like this. We had this disaster of, the earthquake, and some people even say it was a tsunami that, came up like this. And suddenly this turned out to be the place that we took that picture into this catastrophe. And we are going to be talking about the life regarding these vessels and issues in the Mediterranean. What we mean by in motu vita es, when we were discussing about the title of this session, in fact, we chose this Latin quote, and it means life is in motion, or in motion there is life. I mean, we can say both for it. And in fact, when we look ourselves, the history, our own anatomy, our own existence depends on motion. I mean, we are equipped to be in motion. We are equipped not to be stable. I mean, we are not equipped to design, we are not designed to stand still as we are doing now in front of a screen and trying to survive, I mean, in that static position. I mean, the life is always in motion, and everything, I mean, from the past until now is a kind of the history of those. So this is something where we are, and as we extend where we are, we reach the Mediterranean that we are not accustomed to, maybe, but this is what we're going to be talking about, the life in motion and the motion in this content. And the Mediterranean that we know is the sea is, for example, when it's not, when we say Mediterranean, it refers to the sea. It doesn't refer to the land. I mean, it's not a continent like Europe, Asia. And when it becomes the sea, it's the sea of history, it's the sea of mythologies, and everything that's related is a kind of the issues related with the maritime issues and the sea issues in that region. The geography is what Mediterranean is about sea, in fact. And what we will be discussing is, in this context, is the mobility and immobility in terms of design. And for example, we are in a period of transition to a new kind of a mobility. Even in design, I mean, now there's a new demand for the sea vessels and even van life, the caravan life. And there's a change from aesthetic settled ways of living into a much more mobile ways. While because of this pandemic issues, we are confined to stay firm, I mean, trapped in houses and losing the mobility that we have. So this session is interesting in terms of discussing the issues of mobility and immobility with respect to design. Because one thing interesting historically is, I mean, designs regarding mobility is much more older than the designs regarding immobility, settled ways of life. Just to give an example, for example, this is a carving from Caspian Sea in Azerbaijan now, and it's like 12,000 years old, which depicts a mobile sea life, or at least a water vessel, which has been designed, I mean, 15,000 years ago. But for example, the chair we sit on now, I mean, the oldest chair that's been designed is from Egypt, I mean, which is like, I mean, even if we exceed the form, I mean, it's like 5,000 years. So the mobility is not a kind of an older concept when compared with the immobility. The immobility has appeared with the agrarian societies, with the settled societies, and this is an interesting issue that I sometimes refer to. For example, the musical instruments have been designed, I mean, 43,000 years ago. Yes, I mean, certain, I mean, items of survival have been designed millions of years ago. The first vessel is, this is from the Netherlands, and it is like 10,000 years ago. It's a dugout canoe type sea vessel. But the chair has been designed when compared to these very recently. So sitting is not that human when compared with the mobile mobility and the mobile ways of life. For example, all these items that we design even today are the variations of the settled ways of living. And this settled ways of life, immobile ways of life, not mobile ways of life. But when you look at, I mean, the life on Earth in a historical perspective, life has, it's like a river, it's like water, it's flowing and it's a mobile thing. I mean, though we are kind to refer to, okay, have you got your resident permit kind of issues, or this is something that has happened after the settlements, after the agrarian societies. So this is a new way of looking also the Earth map, which I prefer, because this tells more about how people have moved during history, how certain civilizations has appeared and then separated during history. For example, why people in Australia is different than the people in the South America, and how the connection has been lost. Because when you see the Ice Age has separated the left and right side of this, I mean, geographical reality. And then it has been years to discover America in the 15th, 16th centuries. And yes, we know the history and life on land. We know the Silk Road and King's Highway and all the historical issues related to land. But there was also a very active, I mean, sea life all over the world, even before that we would imagine now. And it's the same thing for the Mediterranean. For example, there were certain civilizations which were actually called the sea people, which turned out to be the Phoenicians later. I mean, and these Phoenicians even moved and passed Gibraltar, went to Africa and started the trade as we know of today. So this mobility made the history possible. This mobility was the, issue that has created the cultures today. And even if you follow this historical route, I mean, you just see that people have always been in a kind of move over the sea. If you take Mediterranean specifically, it was the sea vessels. And we usually, address Arabs with deserts and with the Middle East. But the Middle East was a kind of a sea geography. It was a geography very wealthy, depending on the sea. So, for example, this shows why places like Yemen today, where places like Syria, where the Babylonian or the Petra, cities like Petra, or the Egypt were so wealthy because of this mobility issue and the sea trade that has happened. I mean, if you look at the Arab Peninsula, it is also just like Turkey. I mean, it's surrounded by three wealthy seas, and all the wealth from the Central Asia were to flow into first the Indian Ocean, and from the Indian Ocean to the Arabian Peninsula. And that's what made the Arabia the wealthiest nation in history. And that flow also, made its way to Mediterranean naturally. So there was a huge sea mobility, and life appeared in this area. So these were the basic historical facts. And Arabs, as they have been addressed with the deserts and Middle East, they should also be addressed as the inventors of certain sea vessels, for example, the Arab dhow and the certain rigging elements that is very specific to sail these, these conditions, because these are all very diverse conditions requiring very different, diverse ways of rigging and boat building. And we can see the consequences of it in the Mediterranean. For example, the dhows combined with Latin sails. The Latin sails turned out to be the ability to move towards the wind, because the wind conditions in the Mediterranean is from the usually north to south, and you have the ability to move, for example, over the River Nile, or from Africa to the European shores or the Anatolian shores, were requiring to sail towards the wind, which made the Latin sails to be developed. And this maritime history turned out to be also a history of design, which we don't refer to much, I mean, except from like sessions like this. But the maritime design history is as rich as the design history on land, and it explains history, as we know, much more better and detailed, which we are going to refer here. And the last centuries, I mean, even from the Roman Empire on, the sea life and the vessels that were designed over Mediterranean seemed to be, I mean, trapped in two functions, either warfare or trade. And the much more smaller ones turned out to be the fishing boats. So these three utilities shaped the boat building and boat design of the Mediterranean for a very long time, I mean, which means the warfare and the trade and the fishing. And also, even the design of the vessels, if you look at, gives us the indication about the culture. I mean, so when you, for example, compare a trireme or a bireme in the Mediterranean, you see these, I mean, huge paddles. I mean, even hundreds, thousands of paddles are being used. Paddling means that's slavery. I mean, if you have slaves, then you use such types of designs in your sailing vessels, in your maritime vessels. So if you look at the Mediterranean, you see these types of old paddling type of galleys and gallons and triremes, which means there are civilizations or empires which have slaves. But when you compare such types of designs with Vikings, for example, Vikings don't use so much of paddling because they don't have slaves. They use their boats by themselves. I mean, so they don't use such kind of a slavery. So they have developed a much more, I mean, intricate, much more, I mean, technical, much more advanced boat buildings and even rigging styles, which made their boats, even today, as a matter of research, how they were sailing. I mean, how such a shallow draft made it possible, because they were also conquering the islands. They were to move very close to the lands. So the designs and the attitude toward designing a boat, in fact, gave us a lot of indication about how societies and civilizations were around it. And when it turns out to be Mediterranean, these were the Homeric ships, for example, probably inspired Homer to write the Iliad and Odysseus. And if you look at these types of boats, even this gives us certain indications regarding sailing from not from north to south, but from east to west direction. So because that was the main trade route between, for example, the Anatolian shores and the islands in the Aegean and the Greek shores. So there appears that every line gives us an indication about the geography, the climate, the conditions in that sense. So for example, you don't seem to find anything like this, I mean, in the North Sea. I mean, Vikings have never thought of developing such a design because of the quality and the characteristics of their nations and historical conditions. And I mean, these are the basic issues that I will settle for Andrea at the moment. I mean, so because after years, after, I mean, centuries of shipbuilding and boat building, depending on warfare, trade, and fishing, I mean, the 17th century, in fact, saw something. I mean, the first recreational boat, and I'm gonna share it here. So this is probably, this is Yacht Mary. This is, I mean, this is in history. This turns out to be the boat that was built not for warfare, not for trade, not for also fishing. It was a present from the Dutch people to England and for the Prince of England to use it only for recreational purposes. So suddenly another utility turned out to be for boat building and design. If we're not going to use it for warfare, if we're not going to use it for trade, if we are not going to for fishing, but if we are going to use it for recreational purposes, how we should design these boats? It turned out to be an issue of design and approach to a new generation of boats to be built. And apart from the history of these issues, as we see, I mean, I will just give you an indication of, I mean, anything you see in the Mediterranean region, you can start classifying, this is for trade, this is for warfare, this is for fishing. And there are some types that you can say, this one is for recreational ones. And with the combination of, for example, the industrial era and the industrial methods, especially in the 20th century, with the composite material developments, suddenly a new generation of lifestyle over this, I mean, maritime vessels appeared, which is, I mean, a mobile sea life for recreational purposes on sea. And not only that, even today, after this pandemic conditions, I personally see the transition that people are moving to their boats rather than staying in their homes. I mean, I see a new class of people in the boats, the grandmothers, grandfathers, grandchildren, and sharing or trying to develop a new kind of life that depends on, I mean, buildings or settled designs, but on a mobile, I mean, sea vessels and sea life. So this cartoon indicates what I am up to. I mean, then we come to a moment that, I mean, there appears a new type of boat, not for the utilities that the centuries have known. I mean, war, trade, or fishing. I mean, but for, I mean, other aspects of life, the recreational types, and so. And for example, here we see one of the latest boats. This picture has been taken in Bodrum, and this boat belongs to Abramovich. I mean, the wealthy Russian who also, I don't know, the soccer club of Chelsea. And this is not for war, this is not for trade, this is not for fishing. This is a super yacht for the recreational purposes and also for all types of life that makes living mobile. So this is how I set the ground for Andrea so that he can take over from this point. And I'm also wondering where he's gonna take them up to.
Okay, thank you, Jan, for setting the frame, I think that in the last picture could be seen the link and the relationship between what you stated and let's say the overview that I'm going to present on future trends, but even on what's going on in the market nowadays in this after this pandemic situation, and how these affect behavior of people and the way of giving value to the yacht, not only as a pleasure craft, but even with the possibility to look at these as a safe area or a safe zone where to live, where to work. And so I think that from this perspective, and just starting from the end of your presentation, this could be a good starting point, because if we look at the meaning of pleasure, that in Italian is divertimento, the literally translation is entertainment, but it's not the same meaning, because the meaning of divertimento came from Latin disvertere, and that means look at a different place or at a different way. And so I think that this concept of disvertere could be actual even in looking on what is going on in the market and in design of the yacht. I start sharing my screen for using the presentation I prepared. No, sorry. Okay, please confirm me that you are seeing my presentation.
Perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to deal about, as Jean said, life is in motion, and I think that the more time passes and we notice that this was true, and anytime more true, because we increased, or at least till now, this way of living. Even if just over the last year, we take evidence that there could be some events that can change radically our habits, our way of thinking, that we can move. And so, as Jan showed you, putting into evidence the relationship between, let's say, moving all around and culture transfer, probably nowadays we have to go back in thinking on this relation, because we all faced that something could change, and it could change the setup on which we are working. So I will try to go deeper in this, but I just want to present you some information on related to four topics, and I'd like to start from what is going on the market. over the last year, because as we get in the pandemic situation and how these affect the market, if it's possible to notice a different behavior of the market. At the same time, some consideration on the regulatory landscape. I mean, the effect of the pandemic situation could have effect on regulatory, even if, as we will see, probably is not exactly in the direction that we could imagine. And then we move toward the effect on trends in design approach of yacht. I will focus mainly on the bigger segment of yacht production. That is the one that is not only because it's the one that is increasing over the last year in terms of value production, but even because in that area is concentrated the bigger effort in design, in technology transfer, and starting from that results, generally we drive these results toward the other level of yacht. So we will focus on this. If we have time even to go back on the topic of the tools that we can use for make forecasting, we will see if we will have time or not. But for sure, I would like to reach this stage that is focused on the trend in design. So what about the market analysis? Probably after this period, after this year in which we face the problem, and we start looking at outside in a different way, because we were forced to stay at home or to work from home and so on. There could be a thought that is a transition period. So we have to wait something. We have to wait that the fog to clear is a way of saying that, okay, let's wait that something go better and the situation could solve. But in a realistic perception, this is not what is going on, or at least if we look at the market of yacht, we don't see an element to follow this vision. And for sure, the market not only in the yacht field, but in any kind of field is uncertain. So it's very hard to estimate, to make forecasting on which could be the next evolution of the market. But if we look to what is going on, we saw that especially in the yacht field, we had some positive effect if we look from the side of the market on the production of value. We had, for example, this summertime, an increase of 30% of the charter services, if we talk about medium level of yacht. So we had a decrease of charter if we think to the let's say the biggest level of yacht, because ultra rich people who was used to travel all over the world and reach let's say Italy or Turkey to to have their summertime and rent there a charter yacht was not allowed to do this. And so from this side, there was an impact on the market, but at the same time, many other people, just because they was not able to move or to stay in land, they choose to stay in a safe area, which was represented by the yacht and living on a yacht. The same on the ship. There are many ship company now are pushing the possibility even to organize smart working from on board. And so there's something that is moving from this point of view, and there's even the possibility that some effect of this new setup of the market could have some positive effect, some long-term positive impact on the way of managing the design and the production of the yacht, and even the way of driving to the market. Just because there's a push, there's an increasing of sensibility on the impact of the general development had on the environment. And so from this point of view, we have to say that all the, let's say, the idea of sustainability and the need to follow at any stage an idea of sustainability should increase the speed. And so combining how we can merge the possibility to increase the possibility to travel, to have pleasure with yacht, but even to have safe and to combine functionality, different functionalities on board that are not only pleasure, but even, for example, work or stay or live on board could have a positive effect. And at the same time, the perception of the need of sustainability is increasing more and more. And we will see that even from the regulatory frame, this is more and more stressed, and this will be again furthermore in the future. So if we look at what the data says on the trend of the market, we see that the data is still increasing. We are talking about big yachts in this case, so yachts that are from 30 meters on, and we see that the percentage of growth of the market is now set on 3% per year. So this is, let's say, the past till 2019, and if we look at the situation in different perspectives, so what is going on the whole market and what is going in Italy, that in this field is relatively important in terms of production, and the same is Turkey. So the production around the Mediterranean area is relevant. We see that the increase is even bigger. And if we look at the bigger dimension of yacht, we see that this is increasing more and more. I mean, the more we move toward the bigger dimension of yacht, and the more is the increase. And that's the trend that we noticed over the last, let's say, 10 years, but is something that is going to replicate the results over the next 10 years. This is the trend. Sorry, this is the trend for what will be till 2030. And if you see the trend of the increase of the yacht, taking into account the dimension, so looking at the different colors, so first part of the column is yacht till 30, 45 meters, red one is 45, 60 meters, and over we have the bigger private yachts. And in this case, if you compare the situation, let's say a couple of years ago, and in 10 years, you can see that this is going to double the dimension. And taking into account that the value of this yacht is very big, that it's a great drive of the market. What about the frame of rules? Because there were some people that believe that the new situation, so the pandemic situation, the crisis in which many industry companies found themselves will have produced, let's say, a standby of the regulatory frame for what concern the control of the environmental impact. And this is not what is going on. On the contrary, it is happening the exact contrary, because all the frames on which we are working in the different level are stressing more and more the rules in order to respect and reduce the environmental impact. And this is true for any kind of situation, and especially for what concerns yacht regulation. This is true. So the attention to the reduction of CO2, the reduction of greenhouse gases will show that over the next years we will be asked to stress our research activities in order to avoid the dependence on fossil fuels. And this will be a great changement, because nowadays we are very close to the fuels that we are using for moving yacht and the related technologies. Electric power is increasing, or has increased over the last 10 years, but probably is already now evident that this couldn't be the solution. So hydrogen, ammonia, wind, and so on will be field where we will see a use of research and money to get to a new solution. And this will impact for sure the approach of designing the yacht and environmental that we use on board. So if we can look at the trend for the new yacht in the next future, the possibility to have yachts that could be considered for different point of view more efficient will be for sure a driver, but at the same time the expectation of having something that is a living space that can allow experience on board will be the two elements that drive the design of the new yacht. And to do this, for sure, there will be a need of technology transfer, and this is, let's say, up to the designer to manage in the future. So if we move toward the analysis of what is going on in the design approach to the yacht, we can try to summarize and focus on some elements. And I could say that it's quite strange, because if we go deeper in details in analyzing the principle of the approach that is followed now in approaching the design of a yacht, we can find most of these are principles which was stated by Le Corbusier. And so we are at the beginning of the last century. And so it's quite, let's say, funny that this could be considered actual and up-to-date now, and even in this situation after pandemic or during the pandemic, that we consider something new, something unexpected, and something that we had not know the possibility to predict. And so, which are the key points on if we see what is if we see at the design production nowadays, we can find through the different designer are focused on in doing. One key point is to transfer the possibility to work on the yacht based on some principle that is related to the expectation of the customer to use this to have an experience, to live an experience, to have, let's say, the possibility to satisfy a lifestyle, a way of use that living space, and not anymore the possibility to represent themselves through a product, to a luxury product. And so this is a big change, and this drive to approach the design of a yacht independently from the dimension of the yacht. If we see at the sketches of different yacht of let's say a yacht designer, and you take a different of this, you can see that the feeling and the approach in designing the style of the yacht is not so related as in the past to the dimension. And even is for this reason that I said I focus my data on the super yacht market, because this is a driver. This is something that is affecting the approach at the different stage in terms of dimension of yacht. So this is a first topic that we can on which we can discuss, but on which we can find the same let's say approach, comparing the production of the yacht nowadays and the yacht that are under construction now. A second key point is related to the way of approaching the plans of the yacht, and from this point of view, there's an evident tendency in follow open plans. And again, this was one of the key points of Le Corbusier. So a flexibility in approaching, let's say, the volume of the plan of the interior, not only in plans, but even innate. And so the composition of the layer, or let's say the deck, is now more flexible. And so the connection is not only horizontal, but even vertical. And this changed the approach to the interior and the way of living of these interiors, because this is something that changed our perception of that room. And mainly, if we look at the changement of the interior in using the height of the inside, is something that is going to change, has changed over the last year, and is going to change more and more in the future. The more we move toward the bigger dimension of yacht, the more we notice that the relationship between the deck is not the starting point in designing the GA of a yacht, but the relationship, the connection, horizontal and vertical, among the different functional spaces is getting more and more important. And this could be made by cutting some part of the different decks, or uses transparency in the deck, on using different way that change our perception of that room. In this case, for sure, when we cut, we are reducing the surface available, and is for this reason that there's even in this perspective a change of perception and of sustainability in the use of space, because in that case, if you analyze let's say a big yacht, a 30 meters or 40 meters or 50 meters yacht, you can find a lot of overlapped function, and so many tables, many sitting place, many cockpit, and so on. And this is going to change. The replication of the function is not anymore something that is followed in design, but the quality of the environment that are done, and even the perception and the feeling that you have in the interiors could change. And this is something that is driving a big change in yacht interior design. A third key point is related to how is managed, let's say, the exterior, the concept of the exteriors. And again, Le Corbusier principle in giving freedom in managing the surface is something that we can find again even in the yacht. If we look at the design of the side view of a yacht, and we compare what we saw, let's say, till the recent past, we can find that in most of cases we have a final result that is a result of combining different decks. So we are thinking to the volume, to maximize the interior volume, because was what was appreciated by the customer. So a lot of cabins, a lot of pleasure function, and so on. And this was reflected on the exterior. Now, what is moving and what is changing is that there's a concept of the exterior that is related and come first to the output that drive from the combination of interior volume and the overlap of deck on a big yacht. So this attention is related to the way of managing the height of the interior and at the same time the height of the yacht itself. Further key item is related to the way of managing the relationship among the different functional space on board, and this is probably one of the main topic which we observed over the last year, and we are even now in this new situation in which the expectation to have the possibility to combine different activity on board, which are not only related to pleasure, but even to other living function, is getting more and more important. If we look to what this had in terms how this reflected on the composition of the yacht, we assisted over the last year to a transition in which the exterior of the yacht is going more and more important, and so the relationship between what is considered interior and exterior is lighter because there are a lot of let's say expectation and attempt from the design point of view to give value to the possibility to take advantage of being in a living space, but is a moving living space that moves in a very beautiful environment. And so the idea to be close in a technology folder that make a great separation with the environment, that is the real adding value that this yacht can offer, is something that is not anymore considered clever or appealing. And so the exterior is getting more and more important. This was a design of hot lap design for Arcadia of I think 4 or 5 years ago. We gave them a prize, an award for this design that was radically increase the way of using exterior, and so considering the exterior as an interior. This was some of the way they manage the let's say the saloon that was very difficult to define as an interior, because the relationship with the exterior was totally, not only because they had a lot of glasses surfaces, but because they even have the possibility to open, so consider a real exterior, this kind of living. So this changed a lot, and it's going to change the perception of what could be the quality, and especially in our climate, and so in Mediterranean situation, this is getting more and more relevant. Fifth key point is related on the use of green on board. If you remember, probably in the ship that Jan presented you, in the ship we had the tradition to have close to the stern of the yacht the culture of vegetables, just to avoid illness during during the trip, and so having the possibility to produce and consume fresh vegetable on board. But the role of green on board is something that is increasing. And again, this was one of the principles of Le Corbusier. And we saw even in architecture how this was used over the last year to not only give value to the perception of the architecture, but of the living space, but even getting more and more importance in make a new configuration of architecture. This is Studio Boer in Milan. Vertical hood is the name of the building. And so this is something on which designers are working and transferring on board the adding value that living living with green could mean in a yacht interior. This was an example, an extreme example of this big yacht, which has a spherical bubble in the middle, and there's a greenhouse with the possibility to have inside a lot of green, living green on board, and let's say the feeling and the mood of this interior is all around this presence of green on board. So this is something that is driving new perception and probably even new value. Last, and probably the most relevant, is related to the relationship with the water. So from this point of view, there's has been a big change over the last year in increasing more and more the relationship, the contact with the water. And this is evident if we take into account that over this time, even the dimension of the yacht get increased. And that means that if we stay on a yacht of 40 meters on the second deck, we are 10 meters far from the water level. And so there's something that could be considered strange, because we are there just to leave the sea, and that's not possible. And so from a certain point, if you know the line of Philippe Briand for Picchiotti, which is named Vitruvius, not this picture, I didn't take this, but he worked on this. So introducing in the concept of this kind of yacht, just one deck, and so changing radically the idea that the value of the yacht is related to the number of the decks, the amount of the living volume on board. And this was the first attempt was 6 years ago, probably the first line of Picchiotti Vitruvius. And through technology, what is going on is something that even in this design of Nauta yacht, that could appear quite conventional in terms of let's say dimension, but we can find all the key points that I described. So the concept of the yacht that moves together with the interior, a reduction of the volume of the interior in favor of the exterior, and the possibility to use and to be into the environment, and again, the relationship with the water drive to find solution in order to stay in touch with the water, even if we are in a so big kind of yacht. And this is going to affect more and more the concept of the interior. You can understand how change the perception and the approach in working like that on this area of the yacht. And from this point of view, I have to say that over the last year, we saw a concentration of suggestion of attempt made by the designers to increase more and more the possibility to, let's say, this kind of relationship. So again, you can see even in this design, the relationship and the role of the exterior of the yacht, a reduction. This is a 75 meters, so a very big yacht, but the perception is that the line is very far from a 4 decks yacht of this dimension. And again, if we move toward the stern of the yacht, we understand that the main area in terms of way of living is that area. So is let's say a beach that is moving and giving the opportunity to the owner to use this and move, valorizing the possibility to be into the environment and the relationship with the water. And more this attempt is done changing, let's say, the ratio between the role of the exterior and interior. In this case, you see the saloon of this yacht that is traditionally the focus point of the yacht, and in this case, the relationship with the exterior is going to change. So this is, let's say, a window toward the exterior. And so in this case, the role that is of this part that could be a saloon, but even the continuous of the surface toward the cabin can allow to work on the bulkhead, movable bulkhead, in order to give this continuity to the interior. And this is a trend that we can notice in motor yacht. Is a trend that we can notice even in sailing yacht. This is a 130 feet sailing yacht, where the concept and the expectation in terms of comfort for cruising function is at let's say a maximum, but the starting point is that this is a sailing yacht. So we have to respect the possibility even to use this yacht for racing or for other purpose, but without avoiding the possibility to have at the same time comfort on board. If we compare, this is one of the last yacht of the Vendée Globe that are racing now. If you look at the comfort that is reached even in this kind of yacht that are a sailing boat moving around the world at 20 knot speed, but just one man is driving the yacht. the safety and the comfort on board is unbelievable. And take into account that we are on a carbon box in that case, so the worst that we can imagine to have comfort on board. But this perception and this goal is found even in the cruising yacht, where the possibility to evaluate the quality of the exterior and the life on board in relation with the environment and the water is increasing more and more. Jean, probably my time is finished. Is like that or not? I
mean, we are not losing any audience. They seem to be interested. If you have some words, I don't see very immediate questions as well. So, if you have other things to say, I think you can use some more time, I guess.
Well, I think that this was the main concept idea I'd like to transfer. Probably we can leave some room for discussion, because I can go deeper in tools for forecasting, but I'm afraid that then it's needed some more time to deal properly about this. So probably it's better to stay like that, and in case discuss with the audience on some items more in detail.
Let's see how it's gonna on, because the audience and the organization and the theme of this organization this year was common futures. And so as I was watching your presentation, probably the common futures should include, wealthy, rich people, and even crazy enough to spend a fortune for living at water. And while I was also listening, you went back to Vitruvius, but I would make it much more further for the audience. And that's why, for example, we are Mediterranean people, and sometimes we are not wealthy, sometimes we are not rich maybe, but we are crazy enough, to live in this region. And the idea I think you propose goes back to, can I share my screen?
Yeah, sorry, I interrupt mine.
So maybe this is going to be something you can also talk about. You went backwards until, at least I saw Vitruvius, but you mentioned a lot about Le Corbusier. But I think Caligula had discovered more and much more before. And this is something I'd like to share, because, it's that maybe you're gonna know. This is a discovery made near Rome, right? These are the Nemi ships built by Caligula in the 1st century. And they were like, 2 square kilometers wide, and they're covering a huge land. And they were discovered in the 1930s. And I was watching that, if you have a society, wealthy, rich, and really crazy enough to spend fortunes, the time doesn't make any difference, because these were the super yachts of its time. And there were this Caligula who had this, mentality to make this. These were discovered in the 1920s, but later, in the World War II, they were all demolished. And we don't know how they were really looking like. There were attempts to reconstruct these boats, but these were pictures when it was discovered in the 1920s. And for example, this is another picture. There are some attempts of the reconstruction, and they kind of look like, the super yachts that you have shown. I mean, the open air relation with the sea, I mean, the nature issues. I mean, so even in terms of design, this is a mentality. It's not just technology. It's not even history, but it's a mentality of the people that takes us to such designs as well. The floor is yours, Andrea. I mean, I don't seem to get questions from the audience.
I have a question actually, Hocam. I wrote it in the chat box. I couldn't write it in Q&A because I'm on your side. I'm not an audience. So if you look at chat box, you can see my question. For Andrea.
Are there any design projection for climate change? Okay, please, you could clarify better if you mean the impact on climate change, because in my perception, this question is related to the impact, let's say, of the use of yacht, and so it's mainly related to the propulsion system of yacht and the life cycle assessment of yacht itself. That means the cycle of material and the use of energy and the way of managing the management of the flow of these. From this point of view, there are a lot of activities on this because and I believe that the role of the yacht field will be driving even the other ship field, just because you can imagine that in the design and in the research applied to a yacht, which value could be millions of euro, there's the possibility to test technology, to test material, to test the possibility of recycle, and to test new propulsion system. On this side, there are several, not only effort, but even prototype works on hydrogen propulsion, ammonia propulsion, wind turbine effect in supporting motor yacht, and all this is moving toward the possibility to reduce the production of greenhouse gas or CO2. If you remember the slide I presented, I take back. This was just a moment that I share again. These are the targets. So in 10 years, CO2 emission should decrease of 40%, not 4%, 40%, and 70% in the next 20 years. So you can imagine that probably if we believe that this could be possible, we understand that this won't be possible using fossil fuels. And so this is something that will drive to the attention of the producer of yacht to take care of this and even define a solution for that. The same for what concerns the total greenhouse gases, and that means that this is not to reduce in 20 years 50% of the production of greenhouse gases, means not only work on the propulsion system, but work on the production process, and so managing the way of producing raw materials for producing yacht. And so this is going to involve the whole process, the whole production process, and again the design process, because this is radically going to change, let's say, the tools that we have available as designer to make a concept of a yacht. So I think that this is something that we will deal about as designer, and will involve industry in the following years for sure. No doubt on this, even because regulatory is moving faster and faster in this direction. So, as I said at the beginning, no discount on this. So it's not that the position is not that okay, there's the pandemic and a crisis in production, so industry is in a bad situation. Let's help them in giving some discount on this. No discount. On the contrary, the step that will followed by IMO and all nation organization is moving faster in this direction. So if you want to stay on the market, you should respect this. And in this case, I think that over the next year, there will be more result coming out from the design of mega yacht, just because there we have budget to invest and the possibility to make a research activity and test the result of this research activity, and we can drive these results toward lower dimension of yacht, and even toward the ship dimension. I don't know if I replied to your question, if I well understood what was the meaning of the question.
I think it was more than, well explained. We have another question. This is an interesting one. It's from Raul Pinto, and not really a question he has written, but in a sense, what we have been looking at is a form of isolation. Should we emphasize the future of common future as being on no common future, they will be futures? So this is interesting. Raul is from Portugal, and this is a typical Mediterranean mentality, I guess. Looking at, for example, a kind of what we've been sharing in terms of Mediterranean creates a kind of an anxiety, especially the latest developments. The pandemic, COVID, and we suddenly feel it, that it's a form of isolation. But when you look at for example, northern countries, Scandinavian countries, the form of isolation is a form of survival. So everything that they design, even in the form of a sea vessel, looks much more closed. Open spaces are even rare. So while, for example, sailing a northern yacht, you rarely get out of that closed space. But it's very interesting, Raul, that you see it as a form of isolation. And I find it very Mediterranean. It's like, you listen to Jean Sibelius or other composers from North, Edward Grieg. You never feel the Mediterranean sense. It's not like Vivaldi. It's interesting to see it as an isolation, but very Mediterranean. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but you mean when you talk about isolation, you talk from the physical point of view, so thermal insulation or insulation, isolation of people on the yacht or from the land?
I think the question is in the form of the common futures. I mean, if we're going to be isolated like this, I mean, for example, even in Turkey, we have a digital application. Even the name of the application is Life Fits into Home. So, I mean, and we are anxious about the mentality. Okay, we are getting isolated. It's against the kind of the Mediterranean mood. I mean, even the public spaces, the public buildings, the public architecture is open in the Mediterranean when it's compared to the other geographies.
Yes, this is a good topic, and we had the possibility to discuss yesterday during the seminar with an anthropologist we invited, just because we asked him to deal about his own perception on what's behavior and expectation of people is moving in terms of request of living spaces, and so living spaces in land, on the water, and so on. And this was related to what I said before, because when we are talking about pleasure, and so as I said, divertimento e disvertere is something that is looking for something that is to change our let's say living habits, because we work all the day, and after a period we should have the possibility to do something lighter and different. But in this case, there's the overlap of the need to be in a safe condition, and so isolated from the other, and this means that as we are now, we are connected, and so what this will imply in designing of interior is something on the table, because for sure it's hard for people imagined to be isolated in small communities and change radically our way of living and working. And so the relationship to the need of connection and stay in touch, and the technology will drive to a new set of the way of managing the living space on board or even inland, where will be requested to make separation among people. And so what does could be being together but separated is something that is up to the designer in the different field to understand and develop coherently to this. I don't think that there's an answer now to this, because I think it is a matter of cultural approach and development in approach, as in any time when condition has changed or technology has changed. There's a period in which design should take, let's say, should metabolize this new input and give an output in terms of designing solution.
Seems like, I mean, like you started, we are waiting for the fog to disappear.
Yes, but it's not sure that the fog is going to disappear, and that means what could be our reply to this. We could be in a scenario in which the fog could last a lot of time, or many years, or will never disappear. And so, what could be the condition in which we can work to stay isolated but connected, so together but at the same time isolated. And so it's a matter of relationship, of semic, it's a matter of technology, and all these are elements that should be included in the design approach.
Yes, I think it's also a matter of design, but every generation has its challenges, and what is life without challenge, right? I mean, some generation had 2 world wars in their times, and some generation had different types of blades. And now we're in a time that we had our challenges, and well, this is what the designers and design is for. I think now it's time to end the session. I don't see any questions and answers. I don't see any comments being made. I see some people leaving the session. So can I call Elif to, help us to end the session?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. This was really wonderful, because it wasn't only about the sea in the Mediterranean, the sea life in the Mediterranean region, but it was also, I also listened to it as common features as from the business side, from the making and the production and so on. So I think this is filling up those gaps within our program in that sense as well. So I thought that it was also interesting to listen to these 2 different perspectives. Thank you again, Hocam, Can Hocam, and Andrea RATTİ. I'm just going to make a small announcement for tomorrow, and then we will let Bahar Hanım to close the session. Merhaba tekrar. Yarın saat 1'de tasarımcı bakışıyla yapay zeka panelimiz olacak. Moderatörler Lale Başarır ve Güzden Varinlioğlu. Konuşmacılarımız İmdat As, Can Uzun, Özgün Balaban, Arzu Gönenç, Sorguç. Sizleri yarın saat 1'de tekrar görmeyi ümit ediyoruz. Çok teşekkür ederiz bu saate kadar kaldığınız için. Çok çok sağ olun. YouTube'da da